He's considered to be the oldest human mummy found intact, and scientists believe he died more than 5,000 years ago.
He lay frozen for over 5,000 years, a man out of time, buried in ice at the top of the world, discovered by accident, preserved by nature. Ötzi the Iceman has haunted the world of science with one burning question: who was he, and why did he die? In 2025, that question was finally answered. New DNA analysis, cutting-edge forensic tools, and a shocking truth hidden in his very blood. Was he a hunted outcast, a tribal leader, or something far more extraordinary? What scientists discovered in 2025 changes everything we thought we knew, not just about Ötzi, but about early human history itself. The discovery of Ötzi. In September 1991, two German tourists hiking in the Ötztal Alps near the border between Austria and Italy made a chilling discovery that would captivate the world. While trekking through a glacier near the Tiesenjoch Pass, they stumbled upon what appeared to be a frozen corpse protruding from the melting ice. Initially believing it to be a modern-day mountaineer who had suffered a tragic end, they alerted local authorities. However, the find turned out to be far more ancient and significant than anyone had first assumed. The frozen body, later nicknamed Otzi the Iceman, was embedded in the glacial ice at an altitude of over 3,200 meters. Due to the remote location and the body's delicate state, early recovery efforts were challenging. At first, rescue workers tried to extract the body with rudimentary tools like ice picks and ski poles, inadvertently damaging parts of it. Despite the rough handling, the significance of the discovery quickly became apparent as items retrieved alongside the body, including a copper axe, a bow, and a quiver of arrows, suggested the remains were far older than initially believed. Once the recovery happened, the remains were transferred to Innsbruck, in Austria, where a team of researchers began conducting their detailed examinations. It wasn't long before radiocarbon dating revealed that Ötzi was over 5,300 years old. This dated him to the Copper Age. This news spread around the globe, igniting excitement from archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians alike. Indeed, they appreciated an unprecedented opportunity to study an extremely well-preserved prehistoric human at home. His clothes, tools, and even the contents of his stomach offered an extremely rare insight into the daily life and survival strategies of early Europeans. As research progressed, so did Ötzi. He became one of the most studied ancient humans in all history. Scientists found tattoos on his body, evidence of medical procedures such as acupuncture, and signs of his last meals. Because of highly preserved conditions, DNA analysis could even detect aspects of his health, lineage, and probable death, cause an arrow wound, and signs of blunt trauma. Ötzi's discovery reshaped the way prehistoric European life is understood and displayed the chances that unlock the secrets of history from the ice. From the moment his frozen body emerged from the ice, Ötzi began revealing secrets not only about ancient tools and survival, but also about the man himself, his age, health, and the physical toll of life in the Copper Age. Age and anatomy. Ötzi the Iceman was approximately 45 years old at the time of his death, a relatively advanced age for someone living during the Copper Age. His well-preserved body provided scientists with a wealth of anatomical information, allowing for detailed analysis of his physical condition and health. Standing about 1.6 meters, 5 feet 3 inches, tall, and weighing around 50 kilograms, 110 pounds, Ötzi had a lean build, likely shaped by a physically demanding lifestyle in a mountainous environment. Anatomical studies revealed that Ötzi suffered from several age-related and chronic health issues. He had significant wear on his joints, especially in his knees and hips, indicating early signs of arthritis. CT scans and X-rays also showed that he had broken ribs, possibly from an earlier injury, and calcification in his arteries, suggesting cardiovascular disease. This was a surprising find, challenging the assumption that ancient humans living active, non-industrial lives were largely free from such modern conditions. Ötzi's teeth give yet another tale. They were heavily worn down with signs of periodontal disease and cavities due to a likely coarse diet that provided stone-ground grains. Microscopy of his hair and nails showed long-term exposure to heavy metals such as arsenic and copper, thereby suggesting some relevance to metalworking as a profession with ramifications on his health and social statutory. Most excitingly, over 60 tattoos were found on Ötzi's body, placed predominantly on areas that may have been chronic sites for joint and spinal pain. Soot was rubbed into tiny cuts to heal tattooing and could have had the same therapeutic or ritualistic functions as acupuncture. With his anatomical features and the well-preserved artifacts and equipment found with him, Ötzi represents an exceptional blend of description and living anatomy of a Copper Age individual, a bridge between prehistoric life and modern scientific inquiry. Even after thousands of years, these markings hold hints of a surprising level of understanding when it comes to medicine among his people. These tattoos were probably not meant to just be for show. They may stand for a very early form of pain management or symbolic healing. In this context, Ötzi represents not just a fossil, but tangible evidence for ancient practice of body-based medicine far older than previously assumed. Daily life and diet. Ötzi's body and belongings have offered unparalleled insights into the daily life of a Copper Age individual living over 5,000 years ago. His clothing, tools, and even the pollen and dust found on his gear provide evidence that he led a rugged, high-altitude existence, likely as a herder, hunter, or perhaps a tribal leader. He wore a sophisticated outfit made from animal hides and grasses, including a fur hat, goat skin leggings, a grass cape, and leather shoes stuffed with moss for insulation, well suited for mountainous terrain and changing weather. His toolkit was equally impressive and revealed a great deal about the technological capabilities of his time. Among his possessions were a copper axe with a U-handle, a flint-bladed knife, a longbow, unfinished, and a quiver of arrows, some of which were broken or incomplete. He also carried a backpack frame, a fire-starting kit with flint and pyrite, and a birch bark container holding embers, suggesting he was prepared for extended time in the wilderness. These tools indicate a self-sufficient lifestyle that involved hunting, gathering, and possibly trading or metalworking. Perhaps the most significant discovery was the analysis of Ötzi's stomach contents, which had survived remarkably well. The scientists determined that the last foods eaten by him were meat from the red deer and from the ibex, a wild goat, einkorn wheat, and perhaps some ferns, some of which are poisonous and might have been taken for medicinal purposes or accidental ingestion. Charcoal and cooked meat found in the stomach strongly suggest that he was cooking over a fire. The varied diet suggests that he possessed a keen understanding of seasonal food sources in his environment. Conjoined, these findings contribute tremendously to the scene of life in the late Neolithic early Copper Age. Ötzi was not a vagabond. He was a skilled man living in a complex society with specialized skills in hunting, clothing, and survival in alpine conditions. His diet and wear testify to a life of survival supporting with climate, depicting the early persistence and resourcefulness of European peoples. It also hints at a sophisticated social network that goes beyond what we have assumed so far. Ötzi's tools, clothing material, and even the contents of his stomach suggest multiple connections to different areas, with the possibility of trade networks or paths of seasonal migration. Far from being predominantly isolated, his world existed within a more expansive, evolving one, colored by human interaction, innovation, and the sharing of knowledge. Ancient tattoos. One of the most fascinating aspects of Ötzi the Iceman is his collection of ancient tattoos, which are the oldest known tattoos ever discovered on a human body. Researchers identified over 60 tattoos located across various parts of his body, including his lower back, knees, ankles, wrists, and along his spine. These tattoos were not decorative or symbolic in the artistic sense, but consisted of simple lines and crosses made by rubbing soot into small, shallow incisions in the skin. The placement of the tattoos suggests they may have served a therapeutic or medicinal purpose rather than a purely cultural or aesthetic one. Many of the tattooed areas correspond to regions of chronic pain identified through scans of Ötzi's skeletal system, particularly his joints and lower back. This correlation has led researchers to theorize that the tattoos functioned similarly to acupuncture points, potentially as part of an early form of pain management or healing practice. What is more striking is that Ötzi's tattoos exist 2 millennia earlier than at the very earliest known practices of acupuncture in channeling energy through points in ancient China, which raises interesting queries as to the independent evolution of body markings for therapeutic reasons in various ancient cultures. It tests the already existing timelines of medical history and suggests what we have all imagined was a very primitive world in respect to prehistoric people's understanding of pain relief and bodily afflictions. Ötzi's tattoos are undergoing fascination and research till today because they hold promise not only for his personal health issue, but for the beliefs and knowledge systems of the wider Copper Age. They provide powerful evidence for early human experimentation into alteration of the body to serve a function marking not just skin, but a much deeper understanding of prehistoric medicine. While some think of the patterns located next to joints and zones under tension as applications of an early form of acupuncture or treatments for pain, discomfort, others associate it with ceremonial terms with cultural importance at that time. In either case, Ötzi's skin ink marks one of the most ancient legacies in human history with therapeutic or ceremonial tattooing. Genetic legacy. Ötzi's remarkably preserved body has allowed scientists to extract and analyze his DNA, unlocking a detailed picture of his genetic legacy. Whole genome sequencing revealed that Ötzi belonged to a haplogroup, K1, still found in modern European populations, particularly in regions such as Sardinia. This genetic link suggests that populations related to Ötzi's lineage once spread widely across Europe, but his particular genetic makeup is now rare, indicating significant population shifts over the past 5,000 years. One surprising discovery was that Ötzi had genetic markers for several health conditions. He carried a predisposition for cardiovascular disease, lactose intolerance, and possibly Lyme disease, making him the earliest known human infected with Borrelia burgdorferi, the bacteria that causes it. These findings suggest that some modern health issues have deep genetic roots stretching back thousands of years, and they offer clues about how ancient humans may have suffered from and adapted to chronic diseases. His DNA also gave insights into his physical appearance. From the genetic markers, it could be inferred that he had brown eyes, dark hair, and comparatively lighter to olive skin, darkened than what was previously thought for a man born in the Alps. He also carried genetic codes typical for male pattern baldness and increased threat for type 2 diabetes. All of this gives an even broader understanding of life and physiology. However, genetic studies from Ötzi would not only concern a single person, they help to tell the story of human population migration, health, and evolution. His genome is like a sort of time capsule to human biology in the Copper Age. Genetic technologies are getting better and increasingly offer more from the past of Ötzi, the history of health, and the genetic basis of today. DNA pointed to ancient agricultural communities and modern-day populations in Europe, particularly in places such as Sardinia. It even revealed such astonishing attributes as a disposition towards cardiovascular problems and intolerance to lactose, which are the trials of his time. Ötzi's genetic inheritance links past and present and shows just how connected we still are with what came before. While his DNA tells us who he was on the inside, Ötzi's clothing and tools reveal how he lived and survived in the unforgiving world of the Copper Age Alps. Clothing and gear. Ötzi's clothing and gear offer a rare, detailed glimpse into the ingenuity and resourcefulness of Copper Age people. His outfit was expertly designed for survival in the harsh Alpine environment where he lived and ultimately died. It consisted of multiple layers made from animal hides and plant fibers, carefully stitched together for warmth, flexibility, and durability. He wore a tunic and leggings made of goat and sheep hides, held together by leather laces. Over these, he had a woven grass cape that likely served as a rain and wind barrier. His shoes, remarkably well crafted, were made from bearskin soles and deer hide uppers, insulated with grass netting, ideal for walking over snowy terrain. His headgear included a fur cap made from brown bear with a leather chin strap to keep it secure. This, combined with his other clothing, suggests he was well prepared for cold, high-altitude conditions. These garments weren't just utilitarian. Their construction reflected a deep understanding of natural materials and how to use them effectively for protection and comfort. The fact that multiple species were used also points to a sophisticated approach to tailoring and resource use. The other tools of Ötzi were modern, with respect to his times. His copper axe, not really an everyday object for the time, would have seen much labor, with a yew wood handle and birch bark tar, an early adhesive. Other than being just a tool for chopping, it may also have stood for some sort of magic, power, or perhaps leadership. Other pieces he owned were a flint knife, a quiver with some unfinished, broken arrows, and a bow that had yet to be strung. He might be repairing his hunting gear. Alongside the wooden frame he was perhaps using as a rucksack, there may have been some sort of utility belt and birch bark containers. One definitely contained live embers wrapped in leaves, suggesting he could have traveled with a means to start a fire. Ötzi's clothing and equipment combine to tell a story of a man who, indeed, was so well adapted to his environment. His equipment was not primitive improvisation, but fine products of inherited knowledge and skilled craftsmanship. The objects provide us with a rare glimpse into the everyday survival strategies, technological capabilities, and social organization of early Copper Age societies in Europe. They show that Ötzi was not just scraping by, he was flourishing with tools and clothing best suited to his world. From his coat with neat stitching to his copper axe, every item he was carrying had a purpose and meaning. They testified to a society that honored innovation, resourcefulness, and tradition at the same time. Mysterious death. The circumstances surrounding Ötzi's death remain one of the most intriguing aspects of his story. For many years after his discovery, it was assumed he had succumbed to exposure while crossing the Alps. However, advances in forensic science have revealed a far more complex and violent scenario. In 2001, a CT scan revealed a flint arrowhead lodged in Ötzi's left shoulder, severing a major artery and likely causing him to bleed to death within minutes. This crucial find transformed what seemed like a tragic accident into a potential case of prehistoric homicide. Further evidence supports the theory that Ötzi was attacked. He had cuts on his hands and wrists that appeared to be defensive wounds, suggesting he was involved in a struggle shortly before he died. In addition, he suffered blunt force trauma to the head, possibly from a fall or a blow inflicted during the confrontation. His position, face down, with his arm awkwardly bent under his body, and the incomplete nature of his gear, such as the unfinished bow and damaged arrows, hint that he may have been caught off guard or ambushed while preparing for travel or a hunt. The context of the attack raises compelling questions. Was Ötzi the victim of a personal confrontation, a robbery, or a clash between rival groups? Some researchers speculate that the copper axe he carried, a rare and valuable item, could have made him a target. Yet, the axe was found with his body, suggesting the attacker may have had other motives or fled in haste. It's also possible that he was a victim of intertribal conflict or betrayed by someone he knew, but definitive answers remain elusive. Ötzi's last moments remain puzzling despite decades of research. What is clear is that he met a violent end in the mountains, where he has been preserved for over 5,000 years by cold and ice. His tragic death provided an extraordinary insight into life in prehistoric times, turning a 5,300-year-old crime scene into one of the most exciting archaeological discoveries ever. He bore several wounds, an arrow embedded in the shoulder and a blow to the head, suggesting an ambush or an attack. But what was the motive? Was it robbery, a tribal war, or something more personal. Whatever it is, the remains of Ötzi paint a distant picture of human affairs overshadowed by conflict, survival, and uncertainty. Recent forensic investigations have found traces of blood from several individuals on Ötzi's possessions, hinting at a struggle involving others before he died. He likely was not alone during the events leading to his fatal confrontation, which could be seen as a linguistically charged social encounter as opposed to a mere attack. In addition, the characteristics of his final meals and the timing of the infliction of his wounds suggest that he was taken unawares in an ambush, putting an abrupt end to whatever journey or task he might have been engaged on. Intricacies such as these continue to stir much debate among scientists and historians, allowing for the perception that Ötzi's death is not merely an instantaneously frozen crime scene, but rather a riddle posing challenges to our current understanding of prehistoric human relationships. Burial theories. Theories about Ötzi's burial, or lack thereof, have been a subject of debate among archaeologists since his discovery. Unlike traditional burials of his time, Ötzi was not found in a grave or burial mound, but rather lying on his stomach in a rocky hollow high in the Ötztal Alps, naturally preserved by ice. This unusual setting has led experts to believe that Ötzi was not intentionally buried in a ceremonial sense, but died where he fell, and was later covered by snow and glacial ice, which protected his body from decay and scavengers for over 5,000 years. One theory suggests that Ötzi was fleeing danger or traveling through the mountains when he was ambushed and slain. The hasty and violent nature of his death, combined with the lack of a formal burial, supports the idea that he died suddenly and alone. His well-preserved gear scattered around him and his unfinished weapons suggest he may have been caught off guard, possibly trying to escape or hide in a remote location after a conflict or raid. Another possibility is that, after his death, companions or members of his community attempted a rudimentary burial by placing rocks around his body. Some stones found near Ötzi have led researchers to wonder if this was an effort to protect the body from scavengers or mark the location. However, others argue that these rocks could have fallen naturally over time or been moved by glacial activity. There's no definitive evidence of ritualistic burial practices at the site, making intentional burial unlikely by the standards of known Copper Age customs. In the opinion of most theorists, Ötzi was either deliberately left where he died or could not be retrieved from the high mountain pass, either because no one had the strength to carry the body back or due to unwillingness. His death and the natural conservation were thus not premeditated. Interestingly, it was in the absence of a proper burial that his discovery was immensely valuable. Had he been buried in soil, his body and artifacts would have completely decayed. Instead, nature became his grave, preserving a picture of a moment in time relevant to the studies on ancient humanity. The unintentional preservation offered scientists an unprecedented glimpse into what life was like some 5,000 years ago. Everything found in the accompanying archaeological context with Ötzi, from his copper axe to the last meal, like the Rosetta Stone, adds another layer of interpretation to the early European way of life. In a way, his frozen destiny transformed him from a nameless traveler into one of archaeology's biggest icons. In some interpretations, the absence of a formal burial for Ötzi might be more directly tied to social dynamics occurring within his village community. He might have been an outcast, possibly the victim of an internal conflict or an outright political power play. Hence, nobody came to recover or properly give tribute to his body in the customary sense. Viewed in this way, the very circumstances of his demise and afterward abandonment could tell us much deep information regarding social fractures, justice, exclusion in Copper Age societies. Whether this was done by accident or plan, Ötzi was abandoned for a very anthropological reason. Societal insights. The discovery of Ötzi has offered remarkable insights into the society and culture of early Copper Age Europe. Far from being a primitive wanderer, Ötzi was part of a complex and organized community with specialized skills, trade networks, and emerging social hierarchies. His possessions, including a finely crafted copper axe, tools made from flint sourced far from the Alps, and well-stitched clothing, point to a society with technological expertise, access to long-distance trade, and knowledge of metallurgy, textiles, and hunting. The copper axe is particularly significant. At the time of Ötzi's life, copper was a relatively new and valuable material. The craftsmanship of the axe and the fact that he carried it suggest that Ötzi held a position of status or authority within his community. This tool wasn't just utilitarian, it may have symbolized leadership or prestige, indicating a society where social roles and personal identity were increasingly defined by material possessions and specialized knowledge. Ötzi's body also reveals the presence of early medical practices. The tattoos aligned with acupuncture points, and the evidence of herbal remedies, such as the fern remains in his digestive tract, suggest that his society had some understanding of healthcare and traditional medicine. This points to a shared system of knowledge passed down through generations, perhaps through oral tradition or apprenticeship, highlighting the intellectual and cultural depth of his community. This coffin was built in 1990, if you want to know. By the time of taking the dead body out of this cold coffin, the person was already buried in October 2023. Finally, the circumstances of his death and the equipment he carried suggest potential intergroup conflict or political tensions. Whether Ötzi was a warrior, a hunter, or a leader remains uncertain, but his violent end and high-altitude travel hint at a society with mobility and territory disputes or raiding activity. Overall, Ötzi serves as a living document of early European civilization, demonstrating that even 300 years ago, people lived in structured communities with complex technologies, social roles, and cultural practices far more advanced than once believed. His tools and clothing weren't crude improvisations, they were carefully crafted, showing a deep understanding of materials like copper, leather, and plant fibers. The arrow wound in his back, along with evidence of recent physical strain, paints a picture of a man caught in a moment of crisis. In death, Ötzi became much more than a frozen corpse. He became a key to unlocking the hidden sophistication of prehistoric life. Ötzi's discovery also contradicts past notions of mobility and interaction in the Copper Age. His belongings and genetic markers point to connections that spanned vast distances, making early European societies anything but isolated. Rather, they engaged in extensive trade, communication, and possibly even alliances or conflicts with neighboring groups. This interconnectedness hints at a social complexity that laid the groundwork for the development of more advanced civilizations. To fully understand the society that shaped Ötzi's life, we must also consider the vast and vibrant Alpine world in which that society existed, a region that was far more interconnected and dynamic than once believed. Broader Alpine context. Ötzi's discovery has not only deepened our understanding of one individual, but also shed light on the broader cultural and environmental context of the Alps during the Copper Age. Around 3300 BCE, the Alpine region was not an isolated or inhospitable wilderness, but a dynamic landscape occupied by small, mobile communities engaged in farming, herding, hunting, and early forms of metalworking. These groups adapted to the seasonal rhythms of the mountains, taking advantage of high pastures in summer and retreating to lower elevations in winter, a pattern still seen among traditional alpine herders today. Evidence from archaeological sites throughout the region suggests that the Alps served as both a physical barrier and a cultural crossroads. Materials found with Ötzi, such as flint from northern Italy and copper that may have originated from the southern Alps or the Balkans, demonstrate that people traveled through and traded across these mountains. This contradicts earlier assumptions that high mountain zones were largely uninhabited or avoided. Instead, the area was part of a network of interaction, resource exchange, and seasonal migration. The tools, clothing, and dietary evidence found with Ötzi fit into this wider Alpine picture. His gear reflects the technologies common among communities who lived at the interface of forest and high mountain ecosystems. These people had to be incredibly resourceful, combining hunting and gathering with animal husbandry and early agriculture. Ötzi's lifestyle was not unique, but emblematic of a broader cultural adaptation to mountainous environments that required resilience, cooperation, and knowledge of the land. Today, Ötzi is seen as a symbol of a period of transition in which human communities were changing fast, moving on from stone to metal tools, from hunting to agriculture, and from isolated groups to more complex societies. His discovery in the Alps proves that these mountains were not on the periphery of history, but active stages in the drama of early European development. The Alps, once regarded as natural barriers, were in reality living arteries of cultural and technological exchange during prehistory. His remains offer an unusual frozen glimpse of everyday life in this period, what people ate, wore, and carried with them to stay alive. Ötzi was not a victim of violence only. He was also a migrant, a professional man on the move in a complex and changing world. In him, we see the fragile web of culture, nature, and innovation at the beginning of European civilization. In addition, Ötzi's find has created a fresh impetus for the study of other Alpine archaeological sites, creating an increased level and richer range of insight into prehistoric life in the mountains. Scholars now realize that these early civilizations were strongly interlinked with one another, with information and goods flowing along well-established routes that linked up valleys and high passes. This ongoing pursuit continues to highlight the determination of human societies in inimical conditions and underscores the Alps' role not simply as a barrier, but as an active corridor of culture, innovation, and survival over the course of thousands of years. From a silent figure frozen in time to a voice echoing across the ages, Ötzi's story has finally been told. But it's just one piece of the puzzle. New technology is rewriting human history, one strand of DNA at a time. If you were blown away by what we uncovered today, don't forget to like this video. Drop a comment below. What shocked you the most about Ötzi's final mystery? And of course, subscribe for more ancient secrets and cutting-edge science. Ready to keep exploring? Tap the video on your screen now to discover another forgotten mystery waiting just beneath the surface.